The fourth function of the skin is the metabolic function. And the metabolic function occurs because the skin can synthesize vitamin D, which is needed for calcium absorption in the intestine. So we absorb sunlight, and that sunlight basically acts as a catalyst to convert or activate the vitamin D. And we need that for calcium absorption. Also, the chemicals in the keratinocytes, they can actually disarm some carcinogens, which is a definite plus. The carcinogen or the keratinocytes, they can also activate some hormones. One example is converting cortisone into hydrocortisone. So you could, for example, rub cortisone on your skin, and as it diffuses into the epidermis, the keratinocytes would then convert that cortisone into hydrocortisone. The skin also makes up an enzyme called collagenase, which is going to aid in the natural turnover of collagen to prevent wrinkles. And as we age, unfortunately, this enzyme does not work as well. So a lot of people will, resort to other things like plastic surgery, inject Botox, other things to prevent the wrinkles. But as I like to always say, Jimmy Buffett says, wrinkles only go where the smiles have been. So wrinkles aren't such a bad thing after all. The last two functions are the blood reservoir, and excretion. The blood reservoir means that the skin can hold up to 5% of the total blood volume at any one time. So the skin vessels could be constricted to shunt blood to other organs, such as when we're exercising a muscle. So our nervous system automatically adapts to whatever we're doing at that one point in time. So if we're exercising, blood is going to be shunted to those skeletal muscles. If we are in rest and digest mode, blood is going to be shunted away from skeletal muscles to the digestive system because we are in the process of digesting that meal that we just had. The last function of the skin is excretion, and skin can secrete limited amounts of nitrogenous waste, such as ammonia, urea, and uric acid. So notice it says limited, so it's not a very large amount. But one thing that's kind of interesting is that actually can change with what a person eats. So if they're on a ketone diet, they're eating lots and lots of proteins, their sweat could actually smell a little bit different. They are secreting more nitrogenous waste. And sweating can also cause salt and water loss. So that's another excretion factor. The next part of your chapter is on skin cancer. And since we live in Florida, we know that there is a lot of skin cancer. Most skin tumors are benign, which means non-cancerous. And thankfully, they do not spread or metastasize. So the risk factors for this are overexposure to the ultraviolet radiation. I know of someone that got skin cancer just by when they were driving, they kept their left arm out of the window. They got skin cancer from that. So it definitely is not difficult to occur. So frequent irritation of the skin causes it. Some skin lotions contain enzymes that actually can repair damaged DNA, but it's important that you're always wearing sunscreen when you go out in the sun. It's important to have an SPF of at least 15. Above that, it doesn't really help that much. There is a little bit percentage of increase, but it's mainly a gimmick, from the sellers to get you to buy those. But it's a minimal increase if you look at it. So the three types of skin cancer are basal cell carcinoma, the least damaging. Then there's squamous cell carcinoma, and finally melanoma. So what we're going to look at on the next few slides are some examples of these skin cancers. So first here we see basal cell carcinoma. It's the least malignant, so it is cancerous, but it's um, the best type to get if there is such a thing. So the stratum basal cells, remember that's the deepest layer of the epidermis, they proliferate and slowly invade the dermis. So this is supposed to say dermis here. And usually it's easily removed by surgical excision in most cases. They do a surgery called the Mohs surgery, which is fairly common. They take a laser and they cut out or excise the tumor. So we can see one that's shown here, another up here, and so on. And there's going to be a way that um, we learn kind of how to identify these cancers. We'll see it in a few slides. It's called the ABCDE rule. The next type of cancer is called squamous cell cancer, and you can see it already looks quite a bit different than the basal cell. It's the second most common, and it can metastasize, so that's when it spreads to other parts of the body. Unfortunately, can spread to the lymph nodes. That's when it gets really dangerous. It involves keratinocytes of the stratum spinosum. So remember, that's the layer just superficial to the stratum basal. So make sure you know the layers in order in thick skin and thin skin. It's usually a scaly reddened papule on the scalp or the ears. And it's good prognosis if it's treated by radiation therapy or if it's removed. So these are different examples of stratum of squamous cell carcinomas. The last type, which is the worst to have, is melanoma. And this is actually cancer of the melanocytes, the most dangerous. So remember, the melanocytes produce the melanin, and they're in the stratum basal. It's the most dangerous because it's highly metastatic, and it's resistant to chemotherapy. So it's treated by wide surgical excision. They look at what are called the margins to make sure it's successful, and it's accompanied by immunotherapy. So the key to early detection, which you can do on your own, is the ABCDE rule. I've added the E in here because that's what the American Cancer Society actually uses now. But you're basically checking for abnormality. So if you see anything like this, you need to see your dermatologist. A is for the asymmetry, so do the two sides match? B is for the border irregularity. Does it exhibit indentations like this does? This view specifically does. Does the color change? Could be black, brown, tan, or sometimes red or blue. D is for the diameter, so is it larger than 6 millimeters, which is about the size of a pencil eraser. And E is the spot changing in size, shape, color, elevation, or structure over time. Essentially, is it evolving? Is it starting to change? That's not a good sign. So whether we go back and look at the previous ones from here, and we could look at the border of this one, obviously it's off. The color is starting to change here. Um, there's different colors here as well, and certainly all of these qualify with the ABCDE rules.